History with Larry.
All right, Larry.
All righty.
What do you got this week for history time?
All right, this is kind of a different one, but a kind of a fun one.
Okay.
Warships and Soda.
Warships and Soda.
Yeah.
Like they're connected?
Larry?
They are.
What are you doing?
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't feel like those go together. But
They shouldn't, but so what if you could make a deal, make a trade?
Okay.
You trade soda for warships.
Warship. Well,
Would you make that trade?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, who wouldn't? I mean-
Well, it depends on the warship, but I like a battleship, or are we
Yeah.
talking a cruiser?
Yes.
Okay.
To both.
Oh yes.
what kind of soda are we talking about?
Pepsi.
Okay.
I'll give up Pepsi for a warship.
Yeah, I'll give it up.
So in 1989,
This
Pepsi.
is recent. Wow.
Yeah.
Was this the Russians?
Yes.
Okay. Just sounds like something they would do.
Pepsi made Pepsi Cola. Them and a Norwegian shipping company. They made a deal. Pepsi actually was the middleman.
Okay.
They actually traded for 17 old submarines,
What?
3 warships, a frigate and a cruiser and a destroyer, in exchange for
Some Coke. Some Pepsi.
for Pepsi,
Right.
Pepsi syrup and stuff. And they were actually older ships, but they were actually
What's
later.
Pepsi going to do with them?
They ended up selling them for scrap. Basically, that's what they
Okay.
did. But it's kind of a unique thing. Part of the problem was during the time the ruble.
Right.
The Soviet government didn't allow the ruble outside of the Soviet states.
Okay.
And so to trade with the ruble, it was worthless outside of the Soviet Union.
Oh, I see. Right.
So they needed, and Russia at the time, they had a hard time coming up with hard assets.
At the time?
Yeah.
I still think they do.
Well, they probably do,
Right.
but yeah, they were a little short on cash.
Right.
And so they were trying to make a deal. Pepsi was trying to get into Russia, the Soviet Union, and they did actually.
Sure.
But
right. Yeah, I remember that.
yeah, so they and Pepsi also later they made some deals with Russia to buy new oil tankers, which also gave Pepsi a opportunity to put more plants in the Soviet Union where they could increase production.
Okay.
But the initial deal was they got these old warships, which is kind of a weird.
I wonder how that meeting goes. It'd be like, hey, okay,
Yeah.
we're gonna work with the Russians to get to get our product in their country. Well, how much? Well, they have a shortage of cash, but what they do have
And what they-
is some old battleships and stuff.
Yeah.
How about that?
Sounds like an awesome deal. So at one point, Pepsi actually was part owner of a large
Fleet.
fleet.
They were going to go to war with Coke.
Wow.
Yeah, talk about trade wars.
That's right.
But they actually, before that, Pepsi had a long, going back to like the 50s, relationship with the Soviet Union. But in 1972, they made a deal that they would trade Russian vodka for Pepsi syrup.
Oh, that's serious stuff in Russia.
Oh, yeah.
So they're giving up their
Yeah.
vodka.
Yeah, they got this syrup, and then they could mix it with carbonated water and bottle it domestically.
I crush your head like walnut.
Yeah, that's right. But the next big deal, so the warships, that was kind of big deal, but the next one was actually bigger.
Nuclear weapons.
No, actually, but it was going to be worth $3 billion.
Good night.
This was
Okay.
in 1990.
Okay.
They were going to Pepsi was actually going to go into Russia big time.
This is after Gorbachev tear down that wall.
Well, it's around the same time.
Right.
So yeah, they Pepsi figured the deal was going to be worth about $3 billion.
Sure.
They could increase their production in Russia, and it was a growing market, and that was a lot of money back then.
It still is.
And it's still, yeah, that's a big. Well, also Pepsi introduced the Russians to another American icon at the same time,
An icon. What M&Ms?
Pizza Hut.
Oh, pizza. Well, they own Pizza Hut.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
And
they
Taco
were,
Bell.
Yeah, they
right.
were gonna expand their market, not just Pepsi, but Pizza Hut.
Pizza
as well.
Hut and Pepsi in Russia. Awesome.
Yeah. But if you're a student of history, the 90s, especially the early 90s, were not a good time for the Soviet government.
No.
In 1991, they fell.
Yes.
And guess what happened to the deal for Pepsi?
Yeah, it fell through.
Yeah, it went sour.
Ah.
It fell apart.
Nah, it's terrible.
Yeah, they had a.
It fizzed out.
It did. It went flat.
Yes.
But all was not bad. They were well. The other thing they lost out was part of the ships they bought, the oil tankers and stuff. They were being built, and they got stuck in a newly independent state of Russia that was formerly part of the Soviet Union,
Belarus.
Ukraine.
Oh, Ukraine.
And now Ukraine wanted part of the deal, so this ended up costing Pepsi a lot more. And
Good night, man. Everybody wants their Pepsi.
Everybody, yeah.
Are you a Pepsi guy or a Coke guy?
Coke.
Really?
Well, I grew up with that, and so that my mom
I grew up with
yeah.
Pepsi.
That's
I didn't really grow up with Pepsi, but on special occasions
Right.
we'd have Pepsi. But I don't like either, actually.
I was gonna say,
I don't mind.
like either.
Occasionally, I mean, yeah. But anyway,
Pepsi's a little sweeter. But anyway,
well, all is not bad for Pepsi.
are you a Coke person or a Pepsi
yeah.
person? Let us know in the description. In the comments.
I find most people from the South, especially because Florida,
We
next
call
to
it
Georgia,
Coke for down here for
I
crying
know,
out loud. So,
because
yeah.
Coca-Cola started in Atlanta, Georgia, and anyway,
So you go to a restaurant here, say, "What do you?" I'll have a Coke. What kind?
yeah,
What do you got? Pepsi.
yeah.
So
Right,
weird.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so but to this day, Russia is still the second largest market for Pepsi. Although
Get out.
Coca-Cola they're making a lot of inroads into Russia, and
I would have thought they already would have, but yeah.
they're gaining ground. But
Okay.
yeah, that's kind of a weird deal in the history of
Wow.
Russia and an American capitalistic company making a deal like that. And
That's funny.
so
That
Pepsi
is-
at one point was part owner of a large naval fleet.
like that's got to be the most bizarre thing
I
for
know,
Pepsi.
yeah.
Like, what are we gonna do with this?
Could you imagine the board meeting say, "Hey, look, we're going to make this deal with Russia. It's going to make us millions of dollars. The downside is we can't get paid in currency,
Right.
But
We-
we're going to. The good side is we're going to own some battleships.
Yeah, we just got to find a place to park them. Like, where do you go?
Yeah.
I mean, that's so bizarre.
Yeah.
So, well, cool. All right. Well, thank you for your history there. Thank you. That's a terrible story. It's a weird story. Not a terrible story. It's just a weird. It's a weird.
Hopefully,
bizarre.
it didn't go flat.